Hey, it's Vaughan from Your Career Mastery, and today we're going to talk about 5 tips for a more productive work week. So we've all got the same amount of hours in a work week. The question is, how do we extract the most value out of that work week each and every week and every month of the year? And so in this video, I'm going to walk you through my 5 best tips and how I think about having the most valuable work week and being the most productive that I can be. So my first tip is on Monday at the very start of the week to really assess your week. Take some time at the beginning of the week to look at what's coming up. What's the lay of the land for this particular week and even early into the next week, because that will allow you to understand what are the most important things or the big rocks that I need to work on this week, and that way there's no surprises. If you're just looking at the current day ahead of you or the current 2 days, something might creep up that was in there later in the week that you completely missed or that you forgot about. But if you take that time on a Monday morning to look at your entire week, then you can set yourself up for success by understanding, all right, cool, exactly what is coming this week, what do I need to work on first, what are the order of priorities. I've certainly been caught out many times in the past where I had some immediate things that I had to get done on the Monday and the Tuesday, but I completely forgot about, let's say, a presentation that was due on Thursday or Friday that required a bit more time than doing it just the day before. So if I'd taken the time at the start of the week to really assess the lay of the land for that particular week, I could have organized and scheduled my time a bit better to ensure that I was allocating enough time for the things I needed to work on at the start of the week, but also begin preparing for the things that would be due at the end of the week as well. So that's the first tip. Take some time on that early Monday morning to look at your entire week and set yourself up for success. And tip number 2 for a more productive work week is all about setting priorities. Now this sounds super basic. Everyone knows that they need to set priorities, but it's so easy to be distracted early on when emails start flying in and meeting requests start flying in, or your Teams chat starts blowing up first thing on the Monday morning with the latest thing that broke over the weekend or broke late last week. But it's super important that you are aligned on what you know, and you're aligned with your team and your managers about what is the mission critical things to be working on. What are the big rocks for this particular week? And once you know what those big rocks are, those key priorities, then you need to make sure that you work on those first. Like I said before, it's too easy to get distracted with the shiny object of the latest small task or quick win that's sitting in your inbox. And it's too easy to forget about the big rocks and the most important key initiatives that are maybe things that you need to keep chipping away at over time, but because you don't get the immediate gratification of completing them, they kind of fall by the wayside. But you can't forget that your big initiatives are the things that are going to set you up for success in your role and in your career over the long term. So it's super important that each week you're putting time aside to work on those things that are priorities for you and for your role and for the business that you're working in. So that's tip number 2, set priorities at the beginning of the week and make sure you work on those first. Tip number 3 is all about scheduling in time to work on those specific initiatives. So once you know what your key priorities are, the next step you need to do is actually lock time away in your diary to work on those key initiatives. How many times have we all finished a day and you say, God, I don't know where the time went, or what did I even work on today? Because you've worked on 100 very small, minor, possibly low impact but necessary things to do in the business, and you completely forgot to work on the key initiatives and chip away at them throughout the day. That's why it's so important to absolutely guard your time and guard and lock away time for key initiatives and key projects that you need to work on. So I like to actually put slots of time in my diary, almost like a meeting just for myself, where I work on certain key initiatives and I lock that time in at the beginning of the week to ensure that that's my time. That's time that I can focus on one key initiative and one key initiative only. And by locking that time in my diary, that means that that's time that someone can't steal for a meeting. And that's all about being aligned on your priorities and knowing what they are and guarding your time, because your time is valuable. Your time is important. But you should be using that important time to work on the things that are important. So if you've got focused time in the diary, make sure you stick to it. If you've got time to work on a particular project, stick to it. Make sure you work on it during that hour or those 2 hours, whatever the time slot is, to ensure that you are locking away time, but you're still being productive and effective with the time that you're putting away. So that's tip number 3, is to schedule time in your diary to work on those key initiatives and those big rocks to make sure you've got time locked away to really chip away at them and have deep, focused, concentrated effort put towards moving those projects forward. Tip number 4 is all about thinking and planning before you start doing. Now, it's easy to procrastinate and spend too much time thinking about a task before you actually dive into it. But I've actually found with some of the big projects that I've worked on, it's really constructive and actually more productive in the long term and more efficient if you spend a bit of time up front really thinking about how you want to tackle this project. What's the most efficient way? Do I have everything I need? Do I have all the information? Do I have all the facts? Is there someone that I should talk to get advice before I dive into this project? Should I talk to my manager and get their support, get their guidance, get their insight about how to approach this big task before I dive into it? So a good example is if I'm preparing a piece of analysis for the business that I'm working in, I will talk to a few people, maybe people who are a little bit more analytically minded than I am, as well as my manager, to understand, is this the best way to approach this task? And what am I looking for? What are the goals? How am I going to measure the analytics? What are the guardrails? What's the time period? What are the specific key measures that we're going to be focusing on? Doing all of this upfront work to understand what exactly is the scope of this particular project and this task can save me having to do an initial piece of work and then finding out that it's redundant and having to go back and do it all again. So it's all about getting things right the first time. No one wants to repeat tasks. No one wants to go back and redo their work and refurb it and have to do it all again. That's just a waste of your time and other people's time as well. So if you can get it right the first time by doing a little bit of upfront work, bit of extra work up front to think about how you're going to tackle a piece of work and getting the right people in the room and getting the right guidance and support that you need to do your work effectively, then I highly recommend that you do that. It's something that I definitely do in my role, and I found it to be very, very valuable. So tip number 5 for having a more productive work week will come as no surprise. It's one of the most basic things out there. It's how you manage your time on social media. I know for me, if I'm procrastinating or if I'm struggling to do something or not feeling motivated, first thing I do, and we all do it, is we whip out the mobile phone and go to Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, whatever it is, and we start scrolling. And then you all of a sudden find yourself 15 minutes later in the endless scroll of doom that leads to nowhere. It's a bottomless pit of reels and all sorts of stuff, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with consuming content on social media. It's fantastic. Look at me, I'm producing content for social media. But the thing is, you want to be aware of it. You want to be conscious about it. So if you can think about certain times of your day that you want to schedule in time to be on social media, I think that's a better approach than just ad hoc pulling out your phone when you feel like it and just scrolling through Instagram. So it's all about being intentional with how you use your time and how you structure it. So if you know that you've got time in the diary, or time doesn't have to be formally in your diary, but time that you know each day, you're going to check in on your social media accounts and have a look and have a scroll because it's entertaining, and have a little break from your work, that's fine. And then that'll stop you probably from just mindlessly scrolling throughout the day. If you know you've got time set away to do it, you can be disciplined about it and be conscious and aware. But find what works for you. This is not a hard and fast rule, and everyone's different in terms of how they work and their work schedule and when they have meetings and when they have breaks, etc. So my only piece of advice would be just to really think about it. How you use social media, your relationship with it, when you use it, why you use it, how you're using it, and making sure that it's not taking away precious time and concentration and mental energy from your big rocks and your productive work that you need to do that's going to drive you forward in your career and in your current role. So that's it, my 5 tips for having a more valuable and productive work week. Number 1 was about assessing your week at the start. So first thing Monday morning, looking at your week ahead, looking at what's coming, mapping it out, and setting aside time for all of your big rocks and making sure that you can plan things out throughout the week because you know exactly what's going to come at certain times of the week. Number 2 is all about setting priorities and making sure that you know what the big rocks are you need to focus on this week, and making sure that you're aligned about what you need to do to move forward with all those key projects and those key priorities. Number 3 was all about scheduling in time to focus on those key initiatives. So locking away time in your diary to work on the most important projects and ensuring that that time is there, it's dedicated, you know it's in there, and you can work on your projects and move them forward. Tip number 4 is all about thinking before doing. So before you dive into a big project, make sure you take the time up front to really think about the methodology, think about what you're doing, and ensure that what you're about to do is approaching the project or task in the most efficient way possible. And tip number 5 is all about being conscious and being aware about how you use your social media and ensure that it's not taking away mental energy and effort away from the key initiatives and the key tasks and projects that you need to work on to drive growth and forward momentum in all of your key projects and in the role that you're working in. So I'm Vaughan from Your Career Mastery. I hope you found this video super helpful. If you got any questions, thoughts, comments, chuck them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, hit the like button. More videos coming out each and every week, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.